Before we start with the 7th verse of the chapter 1, kindly join me to chant Gayatri Mahamantra, the epitome of the ancient wisdom. With your back straight, the left hand beneath the right, in a contemplative mood, chant Gayatri Mahamantra for once beside me. Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. When I started with the deliberation upon Shrimed Bhagwad Gita, primarily the first chapter, I had planned to conclude the first chapter within about 2 to 3 sessions. But as the detailing has proceeded and the justice must be dispensed with the true knowledge that it bears, now we are undergoing an expansion of it, whereby I perceive that it shall take nonetheless at least 6 sessions in total to do justice with the first chapter of Shrimed Bhagwad Gita. Today, I shall not be able to encompass more than a couple of shlokas ranging between verse number 7 to verse number 11. 7 to 11. Under the last deliberation, we had detailed upon the understanding of the profile of Pandavas. Who are the major soldiers, the warriors in the battlefield representing the Pandavas? Before I start with the 7th verse, I choose to initiate upon the 8th, the 9th, 10th and 11th. And more upon that, I would like to start with the 10th verse. Because the 10th and the 11th verse, they are the turning points for any understanding which shall conclude that Mahabharata is not a story, it's not a mere epic containing story of characters. If rightly understood to its own depths, the profundity born within the knowledge, one would conclude that this epic is a personification of the subtler movements at the end of human existence. Under the 10th verse, Duryodhana, the major warring character, while his endeavor to detail his own master, Dronacharya, as it has been already detailed, Dronacharya is nothing but the propensities born in the human being. The hardened conduct of a human being that forms the instinctive behavior. With practice and repetition, any habit, when it gets hardened, it forms as a propensity and it can transcend from one life to another. Herein, Duryodhana is detailing his master about the opponent's army, that is the army of the Pandavas. And while detailing in the 10th verse, there is something which is remarkable for us to understand. Here he makes a mention, look master, our army, our soldiers are fighting under the leadership of Bhishma Pitama. Who is the Bhishma Pitama? Bhishma Pitama, if you go by the family relationship, is the grandsire of the Kauravas and Pandavas both. So here he makes a mention to his master that, look master, our army, that is our soldiers, are fighting under the leadership of grandsire Bhishma Pitama. And as I can notice, the opponent army, that is the army of the Pandavas, they are under the leadership of Bhima. When we rightly know that the general of the Pandav army was not Bhima, it was Drishtadyumna. In verse number 10 a new conflict has been created by Duryodhana, who is the chieftain of the opponent army. When he makes a mention that our army is headed by Bhishma Pitama and their army is headed by Bhim. Why a comparison has been drawn between Bhishma Pitama and Bhim? It was much more easier for Duryodhana to compare, if at all initiate for a comparison, that the comparison could have been conveniently dispensed between Bhishma or Keshav, between Bhishma or Arjun, or for that matter, Drishtadyumna. Why Bhishma and Bhim? And he also makes a mention, because he is under the spell of a fear inside. It is rightly to be understood whenever the propensity within a human being, especially the negative ones, when they are alarmed of any kind of an attack, with all immediacy, they start grouping. They try and assess and take a stock of the opponent's army. And while taking the stock of the opponent's army, they start making mention about all those who are the prominent figures, the most eminent and eminent ones. So thereby, he draws a comparison between Bhishma and Bhim. We must understand, why does Duryodhana attribute the entire leadership of his army to Bhishma, number one, and secondly, why a comparison with Bhim and no one else? The answer to this shall elucidate the true information that corresponds to the dimensions of technology of consciousness. Bhagwad Gita is a compilation of the observations of our great ancient Indian seers. It's about the profundity of the knowledge of the consciousness. It's the technology of human awareness. The attribution of characters in the part of a story which has been woven is merely for the convenience of a common mind to comprehend the depths. Therefore, it becomes mandatory for us to answer and learn who is Bhishma. For all those who are aware about the epic Mahabharata would endorse me that there are certain questions that raise a wonderful situation where any mind would object and frown. For all those viewers who are not familiar with this epic of Mahabharata, it may sound slightly different. It may sound slightly objective. Why? Because the moment Bhishma Pitama becomes injured in the battlefield, he is placed upon the tip of the arrows. He is provided with the bed of arrows, which is something which is very conflicting, unmindful to imagine an injured soldier being consoled, being brought upon the tip of the arrows, instead of making him more comfortable, enabling him rest upon some cushioned mattress, instead of rendering him the first aid which is most mandatory. Instead of that, he is confined upon the tip of the arrows and he suspends his final death for a particular period of time. And that particular period of time is ascribed to the position of the sun, because the sun must be northward. Unless the sun is northward, Bhishma Pitama shall not relinquish his mortal remains. There are so many questions that arouse a doubt and a suspicion in the mind of a reader when one would view it from the perspective of mere storytelling. But when understood with the profundity of the technology of consciousness, one would deeply understand the purpose of creating and weaving such characters and a situation like this. Who is Bhishma? The first and the foremost question is to understand who is Bhishma. And he is the grandsire of both the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Understanding it from the realms of the consciousness, Bhishma is termed as the first emanation of the basic spark within a human body, that is the soul. A human soul, by its own self, does not mingle with the ordinary mundane activities of the life. It is a seer, it is the source of all, but does not involve itself into any activity. Yet it remains at the back end as the basic source. The first emanation of its effulgence is termed as ego. Ego is not to be wrongly understood, because the general attribution of the word ego is given to the inflated stature of a human being, where we find any human being who unnecessarily would like to clout upon the subjects or people is termed as ego. And ego is generally viewed with the malefic side, whereas in the parlance of the spiritual science, ego is a very pure subject. It's about talking about the isness. You exist. Your existence is an endorsement for the further detailing that you experience in your life. If you don't exist, there is no need for the mind to create any desire. If you don't exist, there is no need for the intellect to weave the logics for your service. If you don't exist, then your chitta cannot contain any memory or imagination. If you don't exist, then there is no purpose to have a physical body associated with it. You have to be first of all ascertained. The ascertainment of you, the isness, is termed as ego. And Bhishma is the ego within any human being. The pure ego, not the malefic one, not the one that generally is represented as a contaminated form of the personality, the inflated form of a human personality. Not that. The purest, sheer, pure existence of isness. Yes, I exist. I exist. That is ego, that we term as ahankar in Sanskrit. Bhishma is the grandsire, the eldest in the family. It's eldest in the family because the movement soul, it embodies itself, it molds itself into this existence. The first emanation of it that translates for observation of the world outside is ego. I exist. Now I must experience. Rest all later. Rest all comes later. The first and the foremost experience is I exist, and that is Bhishma. And this feeling of existence, the isness, is chaste. That is why Bhishma Pitama, according to the epic of Mahabharata, shall not marry and shall not be able to have children. He does not have direct children. He is not married. He is vowed to abstain and remain under the spell of celibacy throughout the life. This deep resolve of Bhishma Pitama is not something that comes out of a whimsical mindset. This is not interpretation of eccentricity. In fact, this is about technology of awareness. The first observation of isness is merely a projection of a human being. The torch, the moment you light a torch, the beam of the light travels outward and you can sight any object wherever the beam shall land. The beam by its own self, though it serves the purpose in order to spot and sight objects in the dark, but the beam itself does not have its own independent existence. It's merely a projection. The source of the light is elsewhere. It's in the bulb contained into the torch. The bulb in this torch is our soul, the basic spark which we have. And its projection is the beam of the light. Bhishma is a projection. And projection cannot multiply or magnify itself. It is therefore that Bhishma cannot have children, because it's merely a projection. And yet, it is the foremost, it is the Pitahama, it is the grandsire. Once you deeply understand who Bhishma is, then the further understanding becomes clear. Now, why does Duryodhan draw a comparison between Bhishma and Bhima? The reason for drawing the comparison is to be understood. And if you really want to understand it, let me take into consideration verse number 11. The verse number 11, if rightly understood, shall create lot many more questions into the mind of any inquisitive, sincere seeker. In verse number 11, Duryodhan now, he makes a small pronouncement. He orders almost to all leading warriors of his army. What are his orders? His orders are, I instruct all of you to be careful and watch the safety and security of Bhishma Pitama. This is something ridiculous, something which does not withstand the norms of a battlefield. It is something like saying by a general of an army, look, I instruct the entire navy, the entire air force, the entire army to safeguard the Prime Minister. If the entire force of Army, Air Force and Navy are supposed to safeguard the Prime Minister, then who the hell is going to fight with the army, the opponent's army? The verse number 11 in chapter 1 shall raise many, many unanswered questions that shall only be answered once viewed from the aspect of the technology of consciousness. It makes Duryodhan very unmindful, quite unmindful. Why should you instruct all the leading generals of your army to safeguard Bhishma Pitama? On one hand, in the verse 10, you're making a mention that our army is headed by Bhishma Pitama. Our basic strength is Bhishma Pitama. And just because of the reason that our army is headed by Bhishma Pitama, therefore, we stand a far better chance to win this battle. He is the major basic strength of our army. On one hand, you are making it a mention, creating Bhishma Pitama as a formidable fortress. And on the other hand, just in the next verse, you are downsizing him. You're reducing his stature from that formidable fortress to a easily available prey, P-R-E-Y. Why are you doing it? You are conflicting your own version. One hand, you consider Bhishma as your basic strength. On the other hand, you want each one of your soldiers to safeguard him. Why? If you talk in the parlance of the battlefield, these two contradictory statements carry no substance, but from the technology of consciousness, they mean much. Now, first of all, let us understand why is Bhishma compared with Bhima. If you recall my last deliberation, or probably the one that preceded before to that, you might be able to trace the root of the Bhima. Who is Bhima? Bhima is the major element out of the 5 natural elements, that is the prana, vayu, that we ordinarily may term as air. But the actual understanding of Bhima is the prana, the life energy. The moment any seeker is filled with the pranic energy, that life energy, your capacity to create a true will, to be a determined human being, enhances. Generally what happens, with a small allurement, with a small obstruction, we shun away our basic premise. We simply start and bail out of ourselves just for no reason. Why? Because an undetermined soul can get deterred with a small adversity. Even the slightest of adversity to any seeker can deter from his own basic pursuit. And the determined and truly resolved souls remain undeterred by any obstacle or any kind of adversity they confront. The pranic energy, the life force, when it enhances within a seeker, his endurance in order to combat any kind of adversity shall always enhance. One becomes truly resolved. One becomes more and more determined. Your ability to withstand any kind of an attack from the opponent army shall always enhance. To sum up in a couple of words, your endurance within shall magnify, increase to extents which are unimaginable. And Duryodhan knows it. Who is Duryodhan? Let me reiterate again in this particular deliberation. Duryodhan is none else but the one that is always prone to cherish and realize the materialistic desires. One who would fight to any extent to cherish the materialistic yearnings. He is Duryodhan. And he knows that if a seeker shall embark upon a journey wherein he or she shall enhance the levels of the life energy that we term as pranic energy, then the capacity to withstand all those allurements, especially driving the sensory organs for their unmindful objectives, our chance to win over shall become bleak. For any spiritual seeker, during his pursuit of his own individual sadhana, that is the effort to dive within and progress, one would always find that the moment you are experiencing a yearning to grow within, you are experiencing a deep pain within to charter into the dimensions of your own consciousness, there are opportunities and elements that dawn upon all of a sudden that want to thwart your attempts to remain in that effort of a spiritual pursuit. And all those elements that attempt to thwart your spiritual pursuit are Duryodhan and his brothers that we term as kauravas. Duryodhan, somewhere at the back of the mind, is highly alarmed. He understands that if at all Bhishma, the major strength of isness, if shall perish, then we shall immediately become dissipated. Because it is Bhishma whose existence must be ensured. If at all any harm is caused to him, if at all the submersion, the immersion of the sensation of isness dissolves into the higher consciousness, then who shall be able to experience desires? Who shall be able to experience the logic? Who shall be able to experience the memory or imagination? And who shall be able to experience the mortal physical body? Therefore, it is mandatory for all those demonic forces to safeguard that feeling of sensation, the sensation of isness, because it is the isness that can experience the feelings, the will, and the cognition. All sensations and interpretations and contemplation are experienced by whom? That isness. Spiritual seekers would endorse, especially those who are associated with me since a considerable period of time, that we experience a basic sadhana under which we entail few subjects by the name Annamay Kosh, Manomay Kosh, Pranamay Kosh, Vijnanamay Kosh, Anandamay Kosh. Annamay Kosh is the mortal body. Manomay Kosh are the thoughts, the contemplations that are dispensed within. Pranamay Kosh, we talk about a sheath of the energy, the life force. And when we talk about Vijnanamay Kosh, we talk about the isness of a human being. And Anandamay Kosh is that eternal bliss from where everything else shall manifest. Under the contemplative session of Vijnanamay Kosh, how do we proceed? Let me recall to all those who are deeply associated with me. How do we start when we have to experience the Vijnanamaya Kosh? We start by contemplating and relinquishing all bondings between us and our physical body. We start from our foot, toe, legs, knees. Then we come down to hips, stomach. And what do we say? We keep saying it to our own self. We keep on repeating by saying, yes, this foot is mine. Yes, this foot is mine, but I am not the foot. Yes, this knee is mine, but I am not a knee. Yes, hip is mine, but I am not the hip. And gradually we transcend further. The furtherance of this experience is heightened to a state where we dissolve the existence of the body. We disassociate our awareness from a physical body. The moment we disassociate with the physical body, we deeply understand this chariot is ours, but we are not the chariot. And this disassociation opens a new window. Then we go on, we further our journey into the domain of the mind. We experience thoughts. Am I thought? Am I a thought? Am I a desire? No. I experience various desires. I experience various thoughts. I can see them, observe them. I am a seer to them, but I am not that. Then you disassociate with your desire. Disassociating from desire means disassociating yourself from the mind. Your isness, first of all, disassociates from the physical body. Then at the second stage, it disassociates from your desire. Then you ask yourself a question, am I a logic? Logic is the product of the intellect. Am I a logic? No. I experience logic, various types of logic, but I am not the logic. You disassociate yourself from the intellect. Then you further, am I a memory? Am I an imagination? No, I am not a memory. I am not an imagination. I have experienced so many kinds of imagination. I have experienced and I can recall several memories of mine, but I am not a memory or imagination. So you disassociate from chitta. You disassociate from the mind, you disassociate from the intellect, you disassociate from the chitta. Then what am I? Then this question start churning you inside. Then your entire existence becomes churned, deeply churned. I am not the body, I am not the desire, I am not the logic, I am not the memory. Then what am I? I. Then this whirling, then you start whirling within, churning within to your I-ness, mere I-ness, devoid, standing at the back of the veil of the entire projection, I. That experience of isness, the experience of I-ness is the true, pure ego. You can even experience it while listening to me, while sitting on the chair. You can easily close your eyes and experience, yeah, it's me on the chair with my body, but it's me. And at the end of the part, it's me. It might take a slight time for you to boil down to your own basic isness, but when we take a navigated contemplative session, we are very easily able to charter any seeker to that dimension where the isness can be experienced. That isness is Bhishma Pitama, the grandsire of the Kauravas and Pandavas both. And the moment any seeker is able to dissolve that last veil of understanding, that isness, you become submerged into the higher consciousness. All the enlightened souls, what is the brink of enlightenment? Think about it. The edge from where you inch ahead and your submersion is there for certitude. What is that brink? The brink is where your I-ness, your isness also ultimately dissolves, submerges itself into the larger consciousness. You simply become a part of the totality of the entirety that exists. And if that happens, who is going to be at great harm? None else Duryodhan and his entire bandwagon. Because the business of Duryodhan can only flourish and expand if the isness is retained. As far as the isness is retained, he can charter the dance of desires, the acrobatics of the logic, and the gymnastics of the memories and imagination, and can drive the sensory organs to all the whimsical and unmindful navigational aspects wherever he wants to. But if that ifness dies, Duryodhan, you have to die with all immediacy. And that is the prime concern of the Duryodhan. He is concerned about the life. He is concerned about the status of the Kauravas. There is a comparison that can be drawn between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Pandavas have lost their kingdom to Kauravas. But the status of Pandavas shall never be at stake, whereas it is different with the Kauravas. With the Kauravas, though they have usurped the kingdom of the Pandavas, but the moment Pandavas shall start winning, Duryodhan, along with his entire family lineage, shall lose its status of existence. It is therefore, he is instructing all his leading warriors in verse number 11, please observe this premonition. Be very, very cautious about it. You must ensure the safety and security of Pitama, Bhishma Pitama. Now you understand. Because if the pranic reserve in a human being, if the life energy in a human being, through spiritual exercise of various kinds, shall enhance itself, any sadhak, any seeker shall be able to become a determined seeker. And once you are a determined seeker, you can thwart, you can easily give defiance to all those allurements that are brought before you through the projection of the sensory organs. You shall be able to steer them toward the righteousness. Therefore, Duryodhan is concerned. One more concern is there. What is that concern? That concern is that Bhishma Pitama, he is a common grandsire for the Kauravas and the Pandavas as well. Though he sides with the Kauravas, it's a question. The dichotomy is, Bhishma is the experience of isness. That means he is equally the grandsire with the Pandavas, the 5 basic elements, the 5 subtler centers of a human being. Then why does Bhishma, who is the epitome of purity, is known as Ganga Putra? Ganga, the river in India, which is not merely a river, an embodiment of purity. It is considered to be able to wash, clean, purify any propensity which is impure. And he is the direct son of Ganga, the Ganga Putra. Although he is siding the Kauravas, he is standing beside the Kaurava, the malefic one. But yet, no one around him can ever point towards him and ever raise a finger to his basic intention. He remains the embodiment of purity. The major concern in Duryodhan is the Bhishma Pitama equally holds an accommodative heart for Pandavas as well. Because the feeling of isness in a human being, although generally it is driven by the pursuit of sensory organs to cherish the material world, but yet the isness deep within equally is also considerate towards the final emancipation of a human being. As we recall, the basic objective of any human being in this life is Atmano mokshartha jagat hitaya cha. Let me experience emancipation in this life, but at the same time, I should be able to act beacon to others. Emancipation of self is the foremost. But wedded with the responsibility of becoming beacon to the others at the same time. And with Bhishma Pitama, he is there with both. He is there with the material fructification, and he is also there with all those deeper yearnings that a seeker shall experience to grow within, to realize one's own deeper self. Bhishma is not standing with one, appears to be standing with one apparently, but inward Bhishma experiencing a split. If you ask Bhishma Pitama inwardly, where are you? He would always claim, he would always make a pronouncement, by the norm of the nature, I have to stand with the mind, intellect and the chitta and the physical body. I may be driven by Duryodhan, but if you ask me heart to heart, I am equally the beholder of the affection towards the Pandavas, because I also feel, deeply yearn that I must grow within, I must expand within and charter in the dimensions of the consciousness. And this creates a suspicion in the mind of Duryodhan, who very well understands that his grandsire apparently may be siding with the Kauravas, but inwardly somewhere equally holds a soft corner for the Pandavas. The question is, when the Bhishma is injured while fighting in the battlefield, that is the isness. Now you will have to draw your understanding from that character, the personification of a character of an old man with white beard, sturdy body and white shining garb. You have to draw your understanding from there and experience it in the form of isness in yourself. Whenever in the spiritual pursuit, the yogis have experienced it. The moment they come to the brink where their isness is also to be dissolved, to be immersed in the, or submerged into the entirety, the cosmic mind, those moments are very painful moments. They are not easy moments for any seeker, because that is the point when you are split apart. One part of your existence is being grabbed and being driven back to the worldly mundane affairs, whereas the other pull of the space is taking you, drawing you towards the higher journey, the journey of the consciousness. And those moments that are experienced by any seeker are none less than experience of an injured old human being lying upon the tip of the arrows. Why is he, the Bhishma, the pure ego inside, waiting for that moment of the northward movement of the sun to relinquish his physical body? He could do so easily just by a wish. It is not the planetary movements he is waiting for. You must understand, when I detailed upon the Pandavas, it was made a mention that we start with the Sahadev, Nakul, Arjun, Bhim, Yudhishthira, Mooladhar, Swadhisthana, Manipur, Anahad, Vishuddhi. This movement is upward. The upward movement is termed as the northward movement. Down bottom towards the Mooladhar, the journey is southwards. Dakshinayan, we term it as in Sanskrit. The sun is Dakshinayan. What is the sun? The basic effulgence inside. When it is Dakshinayan, the ego shall not relinquish. Ego shall always remain entangled into material pursuits. If at all the ego inside, the pure ego inside, it has to ascend. It has to charter a journey which is northward, that is upward, that is Uttarayan. Uttarayan is a Sanskrit word for northward movement. Therefore, the Bhishma Pitama, the grandsire of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, awaits to relinquish his physical body till the moment the movement becomes northward. As the soul, as the basic energy in a human being starts ascending upwards from Mooladhara to Swadhisthana, from Swadhisthana to Manipur, from Manipur to Anahat, from Anahat to Vishuddhi, this northward movement, and then with gradual movements of its ascension northward, it becomes submerged into the cosmic existence. Bhishma shall only relinquish his physical body when the sun inside becomes northward. Therefore, he has to wait for it. He has to wait for it. One who is being, the entire Duryodhan army is banking upon his strength. They are banking upon his strength. He is the asset which is undefiable, which is formidable. Yet he has been rendered with a carpet or a bed of arrow points, the point of the arrows. Why so? Because that is the experience which pure ego has to undergo while it is moving upwards. All those propensities and experience of several lives that running beyond count, they drag you downwards, southward. But the resurgence has started, and that propelled resurgence within a human being shall always take a jet flight northward. And the more and more it is northward, the more and more is the opportunity for the Bhishma to relinquish its isness. Now it's submersion. It's one with that, the one and the only one. These allegories must be rightly understood. Once they're rightly understood, one would always understand why a comparison between Bhishma and Bhima has been drawn. Though considered and understood as the basic strength of the army, yet needs to be protected by all. Once you understand, then various aspects become cleared. In the verse number 9, we started with 10, we went onward to the 11th. Now I come back to the verse number 9. In verse number 9, without making a mention to any name, Duryodhana, the general of the demonic army, he makes a mention to his master, Dronacharya. He makes a mention, Master, be unwary of the size of the opponent's army. You do not be concerned about it, because I've got so many soldiers with me holding different kinds of acumen and ability, who, when would find an opportune moment, shall act and pounce upon the enemy in various forms. They behold different kind of arsenals. Their strategy is unnoticeable, and they can thwart the enemy through all manners. The enemies have not been named there. The soldiers have not been named, I'm sorry. But yet, the ability of the soldiers who can unnoticeably penetrate into the opponent's army and thwart all its attempts, it's brought to the notice in verse 8. Who are those? Who are those that count as the source of strength to Duryodhan's army? We say that the deformity of a human ego has been termed as Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Mand, Dambha, Matsar. What are these? When you talk about lust, when you talk about greed, when you talk about anger, when you talk about pride, etc. All these are soldiers that penetrate into any sincere seeker, and through various kinds of strategic formation, their own unmindful and mean conspiracies, they can thwart your effort. Recall that moment whenever in your life you deeply yearn for a change. You wanted to draw a change in your life to any aspect of your life, not the spiritual alone, even the normal general conduct. You wanted sincerely to change the state of affairs. You wanted yourself to be given to a new and a better way of life. You wanted to discipline yourself, regulate your conduct in many forms. You wanted qualitatively and in the quantitative form to excel better in your life. You wanted to draw all aspects of excellence penetrate your existence. What happened? You started it for a couple of days. Religiously, you were very mindful about all the new incorporations in your own change. But all of a sudden, one day, something untoward came your way that thwarted your efforts. Maybe it was an aggression of an external element. Maybe it was an interference that was something which was unavoidable. It could be anything that could penetrate. It could be even that you sincerely wanted to read a book and you said it to yourself on the day when you resolve that today onwards, sincerely speaking, I shall allocate 15 minutes each day to read something meaningful. And on the third day, you were able to do it for those 2 days consecutively. And on the third day, your neighbor is celebrating his child's birthday. And he is rejoicing that birthday, and in order to rejoice, he is playing his sound system to its optimum levels. And immediately with that exploded bass and treble, the thumping sounds of the drums, they come and disturb you. You're not able to retain your balance within. It's all thwarted. Dham, 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 dham. And then you say to yourself, not possible today. There's a lot of sound pollution around. People are unmindful. See the way he's playing the sound. Does he not have that adequate sense to at least regulate this sound? Oh my God, I can't read it today. It's done for the day. And on the fourth day, you start reading and something else comes. Maybe your wife, she says, I have something important to discuss. You'll have to dedicate a portion of time to me. You say, let me finish with this 15 minutes of reading. But she is holding an exigency that must be informed to you. She can say, you can easily postpone your 15 minutes, or you can add on tomorrow. And why not have 30 minutes tomorrow? Right now, it's an exigency with me. Some contingency has dawned. You must listen to me. If you give a denial, your rebuttal shall be taken with serious ramification, and you don't want to experience them. You postpone your reading. And your postponement for one day, then the day thereafter shall immediately thwart your attempt on the fifth day. Because on the fifth day, there is something very important, interesting coming on the television channel. You can't afford to miss it. It's one of the manner through which all those warriors, the demonic warriors of Duryodhana, can penetrate into a seeker and blow his endeavor. And Duryodhana is very confident about them. I can penetrate into a seeker, blow his attempts away by way of lust, greed, anger, pride, many more things. I've got so much of arsenal that can creep unnoticeably and can thwart any attempt of his. Master, be unwary. Remain assured, we are going to win because we have all these miscreants on our side. These miscreants are able enough to go and blow away the enemy camp. So be rest assured. This is verse number 9. In the verse number 8, now he draws a mention of couple of his leading warriors. Verse number 8, wherein, just like he mentioned about the salient and the most prominent soldiers of the Pandavas, he draws a mention of the eminent generals in his own army. And Duryodhana starts by making a mention, Master, we have those great generals with us standing here to fight with the opponent's army, wherein I can make a mention of Kripacharya. Now, Kripacharya has been drawn here as one of the major generals in the Kaurav camp. Who is Kripacharya? Kripa in Sanskrit means kindness, the mercy. Understanding it appropriately, kindness and mercy is not malefic, it's not bad. Any human being, good human being, should always be born with the virtue of being kind, with the virtue of holding mercy towards the needful ones. Then why is Kripacharya standing with Duryodhana? This must be witfully understood. Because in a sagacious move, the Vyas Muni, the basic author of this epic, has chosen to side Kripacharya with the Duryodhana camp. Kripa is mercy and kindness. And in general, what we observe in a life is that kindness and mercy attributes itself to almost all undesirable subjects. Subjects that necessarily need not be attributed towards the kindness or mercy, when always hijack our soft intent, lot of unmeaningful substance comes as the outcome to it. And this must be deeply understood, especially in India and with special reference to the Hindu religion. Lot bad has been done out of the act of benevolence. In the act of benevolence, we want to do it for the others. We want to share with the others. We are kind, we are merciful. But at the same time, we are absolutely unmindful about all those people who reasonably require our help and the manner of the help they should be given. Inconsiderate about the manner and the reasonableness of the recipient, we enshower our benevolent, merciful insight, which further creates a harm to the interest of the recipient. Mercy or kindness must be exercised with all wisdom and balance. As they rightly say, you go on feeding a person with a fish for any number of years, no good shall be done. It is better to teach him how to fish. So this is a right form of benevolence. This is the right interpretation and the translation of kindness and mercy. Kripacharya, normally the mercy and kindness of any human being would not be a discipline and a wisdom-oriented subject. It wants to outflow. It wants to simply, it's an upsurge in a human being. And therefore, undesirably, the mercy and kindness, they stand a party with Duryodhan camp. Let me also recall, and for the information of all those who may not be aware, Kripacharya was one of the characters who came out as unharmed out of the battle of Kurukshetra. Unharmed, not only survived, but unharmed. Not only that, after the battle was over, in the scripted epic Mahabharata, he becomes the teacher of the grandchildren of Arjuna. Why? Once standing with the army camp, once who was fought, once who was all out to eliminate us, after the battle concludes, we not only release him and restore him with all dignity, but at the same time, we bestow him with the prerogative and the might to train our own children. Why is it so? It is so because mercy and kindness must survive. Mercy and kindness must be the guiding principle of the human insight. But at the same time, mercy and kindness in a human being should be thoroughly and grossly regulated. It is therefore that Kripacharya not only survives, but also is deputed and assigned the responsibility to train the grandchildren of Arjuna. The next general named by Duryodhan in the same verse is Bhishma, for whom I have detailed and deliberated a while ago. Now, at the third number, there is a character which needs to be understood with great allocation of our seriousness and sincerity. It is not a mere character. The name of the character is Karna. Fortunately, it's not mere incidental, but it's, I believe, it is a divine conspiracy, a program. The recording that comes to you on the internet or in other forms is being done in a city which has been named on the name of the character Karna. This recording has been done at Karnal. Karnal is understood to be the city of Karna. Karna is a very prominent character in this great epic. There are certain dichotomies associated, conflicting aspects associated with the Karna, which must be understood. Mere storytelling shall not do justice with Karna. The Karna is born to a virgin mother, Kunti, number one. The Karna sides with the Kauravas in order to fight his remaining 5 brothers. The Karna, he is the epitome of benevolence. If anyone would approach him to seek alms, he is all open to extents that he is even in a preparedness to turn himself, his own existence into ashes, but not to give a denial. That is what is spoken about Karna. Who is Karna? In the dimension and parlance of the technology of consciousness, who is Karna? Why is he born to a virgin mother? Kunti. Kunti means one who can invoke the divine powers, the divinity, the invocation, one who is able to invoke divinity. And Kunti, any sincere seeker, the first thing when you invoke within is the light of attraction towards the divine. That is the first thing we invoke. Any seeker, when he or she will charter a pursuit of spiritual seeking, the first and the foremost that comes is an attraction towards the subject of spiritualism. And Karna is that attraction. Karna means attraction. Karna means, according to Patanjali, raga, raga, raga. Karna is attraction. And born to a virgin mother. Virgin mother means a seeker who at the outset is not disciplined, does not understand what is righteous, has not been wedded with the Pandu. Who is Pandu? The discriminative intelligence is the Pandu. The pure intellect is the Pandu. Before Kunti is married with Pandu, she invokes the effulgence, the attraction of the sun, and it comes to her. And it happens the same with the spiritual seeker. Being born with the Karna in a virgin state, in a spiritual seeker, there is a lot of wandering one has to go, lot of wandering. Moving from one place to the other, one belief or the other, one guru or the second or the third guru, one belief or the third one, what religion, what form, what manner, the wandering goes on. For any sincere seeker, the mere attraction of the spiritual dimension immediately navigates him to a state of being wandering before he or she, that is the sincere seeker, ultimately ends up with the Pandu, the pure discriminative intelligence. And once that is settled, then you realize, okay, this is my way of spiritual pursuit. I am going through the way of Dhyana Yoga, Raj Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Gayatri Yoga, or any number of branch. For that matter, any branch. But before that, a lot of wandering has to be experienced. And one would not carry along the wandering aspects along with even after the marriage. Once you have ascertained your pursuit, your direction of spiritual pursuit, you shall never be able to, you shall never want to carry that wandering aspect of yours with you. Would you? No. It is therefore that Kunti, out of compulsion, has to relinquish herself from the Karna, the attraction, the first attraction. And the attraction will never have a boundary. Rag never has a boundary. And the problem with the attraction is that in order to cherish and fulfill itself, it easily finds a passage with Duryodhan. It takes an effort for water to climb up. You need a motor for that. But in order for the water to descend, no effort is required. You simply tilt the glass and the water will find its own manner and passage. But if you want this water to arise, a lot of effort has to be done. And Pandava is ascension, not descend. It's ascending. And for Pandavas, the Karna, the attraction has to make a lot of effort, which probably he is not prepared for it. And Duryodhana offers him adequate opportunity and amenities to cherish his wandering desires of raga. Therefore, he sides easily with the Duryodhana. He's committed. At the same time, attraction has got no boundaries, no limits. If attraction is wedded with the Pandu, its attraction is prolonged, it becomes Meera, the attraction of the charismatic value of the idol Krishna enabled Meera conveniently, easily, without even a doubt. She was able to drink the venom which was provided to her. Someone wanted to eliminate her, but she was inconsiderate. Considering as a fruit from her divine source, she gave herself the venom and survived. That are the limits of the attraction, if purified. And the same goes with the Karan too. Karan is open. If someone comes to Karan for seeking any arm or assistance, Karan would be prepared to even turn himself into ashes. And that's what he finally did with himself. Because he was indefiable, he could not be given defiance easily, but he was to be eliminated. Then the only resolve left was to seek his own life from him. Then he makes a mention to another soldier by the name. Now this is to be understood because this is technology of consciousness, not merely making a mention of the characters. Karana and then another soldier, a general, Vikarana. The opposite of Karana is Vikarana. Attraction and repulsion, Raga, Dvesh. For any sincere seeker, if he is always attracted towards new avenues, wandering, shall never settle, shall never be able to gain anything. At the same time, if he is always driven by a repulsive mood, always disassociating with one thing or the other, no, not this, oh, no, not this, no. That repulsive mood shall also not enable him become stationary, not become letting him enable to be stationed at one point in one spiritual technique. It's mandatory to understand for us, if Karana is not advisable, Vikarana is also not advisable. It's therefore that Vikarana is also one of the great generals of Duryodhana. The next name which he makes a mention is Jayadrath. This is a composition of two words. Jay means victory and Rath means a chariot. And the chariot for this existence is our physical body. Our physical body shall always be victorious. You should have experienced in your life, you wanted to experience more and more of something, but when the body rebutted, you could not. I wanted to eat more, I had a lot of liking for it, but I could not. Why? My stomach did not allow me to continue. I wanted to go there. I had a deep interest and intention to be there, but I was so tired. Under the spell of fatigue, my body could not get up. I could not make a move. When this particular chariot gives a defiance, no one can else move it. When the process of aging dawns, when the catabolic activities, they enhance in our physical existence, then what happens? When a seeker will sit down for a spiritual pursuit, different forms of ailment shall come and dawn upon you and try to thwart you, not only with the aging, even for an ordinary, normal seeker. What do? When you sit straight, want to experience something in the contemplative mood, and then the back, oh my God, there's a back problem with me. Oh my God, there's something in my head. Oh my God, there is some pain somewhere. Some nerve, some irritant nerve is creating confusion into me. I'm not able to sit properly. I'm not in the right appropriate posture. The chariot shall always be the victorious one. This is something which wants to be made a mention. Another prominent general of the Duryodhan army, which has crept unnoticeably, is the name which scarcely becomes a character of discussion in the Mahabharata, is Bhuri Shravas. Now, Bhuri Shravas is a name which means a bundle of doubts. A great seer has rightly remarked that any kind of ambiguity, obscurity at the end of the understanding, any kind of doubt, suspicion, if it creeps in, though the creeping will be unnoticeable, inadvertently it would surmount on your understanding and make your belief fall like a pack of play cards. You have been experiencing a particular kind of a sadhana since the last 3 years, a spiritual technique. You've been practicing it. One day, someone comes and informs you something which is adversary to the kind of practice you've been making. What will happen? There are chances for you to register his opinion and then immediately start dismantling what all you have gained in last 3 years. Maybe a good spiritual teacher taught you a technique and you started practicing it for 3 years. After 3 years, something which was not in consonance to be with the teacher was heard by you. Someone informed you something about his conduct. And now you associate his conduct with your technique which you've been experiencing. Oh, this teacher is not good. I've heard something ill about him or her. In that case, whatever has been taught to me, I've been practicing since the last 3 years, I must shun away it. It does not carry any meaning. As is the teacher, so would be the knowledge. Doubt, skepticism can creep in any form and manner and thwart all your attempts. Therefore, it must be understood very carefully. Duryodhan has drawn a mention of Bhuri Shravas, whereas if you ask me individually, I hold an opinion that Bhuri Shravas should have been made a mention in at least 2 to 3 more verses in order to render him much more magnanimity and a reference, so that we can deeply understand who is Bhuri Shravas. What extents of the harm can be caused by the bundle of doubts? Bundle of doubt not only in a spiritual aspirant, but also between an aspirant who is not charged inside can play havoc. And this must be understood at our levels. Therefore, Bhuri Shravas shall act as one of the formidable generals for the army of Duryodhan. Duryodhan is confident. He is reiterating and reinforcing confidence to his master. Be unwary. Do not worry. I know the strength I bear. I am going to thwart all their endeavors and attempts. Their spiritual pursuit shall be blown away into pieces. You don't have to worry about it. I have all these miscreants, all these elements that shall creep in and thwart their efforts. And then after that, he makes a mention to Drona, which has already been detailed to you, and Ashwathama. Although Ashwathama has been given a mention in the last discourse, but yet I would make a mention to it even now. The ever-renewing desires in a human being are known as Ashwathama. And Ashwathama too, like Kripacharya, survived the Kurukshetra. And it is said that like Yudhishthira, Ashwathama also retained his existence in the physical form. What does it mean? It means that when the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they further transcended towards their own respective abode, Ashwathama did not. Ashwathama retained its stature, because the business of the cosmic mind on this illusory and delusive planet shall cease to exist if there are no desires. The desires pave the way for it. Desires must live, must cherish if the business of the cosmic mind needs to be sustained on this planet. The illusory world cannot exist, cannot support to exist, cannot afford to exist. Therefore, Ashwathama survives. So this is a mention of the characters of the Kaurav army, the profile of the Kauravas, out of which the most prominent is the Bhishma. Once Bhishma is rightly understood, not as an external character, but a personification of the subtler isness within, then an equal justice to the other characters can be easily dispensed with. You can afford them with a justifiable understanding once you are in a position to adjudicate and interpret the real intent of the script writer Muni Ved Vyas. Today, I conclude with the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th verse. In the 7th verse, it is nothing but Duryodhan making a mention to his master, now I shall embark upon the introduction, or making a mention to about all those leading generals who are prepared to selflessly prepared to relinquish their physical body for our pursuit. That's it. And I conclude with this chapter 1, verse 7 to 11. We shall embark upon the further journey in the next discourse. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.